Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go with the spin. Biden's press secretary said the president didn't have a medical exam after the debate, but then old Joe lets it slip and says he went to the doctor after. The problem is Joe can't remember any of this stuff, right? Now, hours after the press secretary said that Biden had not had any recent medical exam, the president told governors that he had a recent medical checkup. He can't keep the lies straight, you know? That's the problem. Like they always say about liars. If you're going to be a liar, you got to be a genius because you got to remember all the lies and who you tell them to, right? He's in front of the governors figuring, oh, well, they're my guys, you know? Yeah, I just had an exam, and the press secretary hours before said he hadn't seen any, you know? CNN's reporter, Min Jing, says, has the president had any medical exams since his last annual physical in February? That is a no, says Jean-Pierre. Yeah, no. That's what they told her to say. No, say no. And then Joe gets up. Yeah, I went to the doctor the other day. Now, maybe a small point, but it's showing that they're just trying to spin it, right? They're just trying to spin the whole thing. The guy made a fool of himself in the presidential debates because he's old. He doesn't know what's going on anymore. You can't expect this guy that they basically have to zip his mouth so he can't talk and then just tell him, read the teleprompter. And, you know, when there's quotes and end quotes, Joe, don't say quote and end quote. But, of course, he's so far gone, he's going to say it eventually. Maybe they'll just erase it all. It'll become like Putin's Russia. Everything is controlled by the government. They control all the media, where this is what you can show, this is what you can't show. At least our country has gone that far yet that even the New York Times was calling for Biden to not run because he's gone so far. And when that gets that far out, you start wondering, they're going to be spinning like mad, making up stories, whatever. Put that man in front of teleprompters only. Don't let him talk by himself. But even then, if he's got to read that teleprompter, he's going to mess something up. Maybe it's time to invoke the 25th Amendment, which, if you don't know, says that if a person in office can no longer do his duties to his full extent, they can throw him out and replace him with somebody. I mean, they should do that. It's obvious. The guy doesn't know what's going on. Well, here's an interesting one. Toyota only sold 13 Priuses in June. They're not as popular as they once were because there's so many different hybrid vehicles out there. Prius started the ball rolling, but now, I mean, they sell a lot more Camry hybrids, you name it, hybrids, RAV4 hybrids. People want more than just the Prius. The Prius was the precursor to the whole thing, but one of the reasons they only sold 13 was because they're coming out with new models, and they had to stop sale for a while in June because they were fixing things up. The first 3 months of 2024, Prius sales were up 138%. So over the first half of the year, they're still up 3%, the sales of the Prius. It's just that people have a wider choice of hybrid vehicles. And a lot of people don't want to be, associated with it's a Prius, the snobby, we're better than you. The Camrys have been out for quite some time, a couple of decades with hybrids. People are nuts about the RAV4 hybrids. And as you can see, they're pretty sharp-looking vehicles now. They're not those ugly Priuses that they were just making to make them as aerodynamic as possible to get the best fuel mileage. Even though they only sold a handful of them in June, they still sold a whole bunch of them the rest of the year. It's just this is such a wider choice out now of hybrids that you can buy that it isn't just, Prius is pretty much the hybrid that everyone's buying. Now they're buying all kinds of hybrids. Well, another electric car company has collapsed. This one is in England, and it's called Charge Cars. Now, their plan was to build copies of 1967 Mustangs, right? Classic Mustang. Here's a picture of one here, the classic Mustang. The problem is they didn't even deliver one car. They made a prototype, and they said they were going to make a bunch of them, but Charge Cars, which started in 2022, now no longer exists. The one that they actually made was made of steel and carbon fiber, could go 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, could drive as far as 200 miles on a charge if you're going slow, not if you're going fast. Now they're going to build like 500 of these things. Well, they built one prototype, and now guess what? They are out of business. Now, granted, their showroom was in Monaco, where all the rich people are, right? Because guess what? They were saying these things started at $450,000. All these people think that people will buy anything at any price if it's nostalgic, right? They're going to build 500 of them. Well, they're bankrupt now. Obviously, no one was planning on buying these, such a small amount of people, that now the company is bankrupt and doesn't exist anymore. All these small car companies, they really have a very limited audience, and hey, another EV car company goes down the tubes, probably to be followed by scores of more in the near future. As the world finds out, electric cars, look, even the ultra-rich don't want them. J-Dude Rock says, I got a squealing on starting up my car. I got an '07 Hyundai Santa Fe, 103,000 miles. It squeals when I have a cold startup. Now, is this just old car noises or something I should worry about? The power steering fluid was a little low, so I topped it off, but it didn't make any difference. What you want to do is take the fan belts off. Start it up. If it doesn't make the noise, you know it's something the fan belts are driving. Then I'd say just replace the belts. They make noise as they age. Back in the old days, they would just break off and they'd crack because they were just simple belts, V-belts. Now they have all kinds of grooves. They're serpentine belts. And a lot of times, they don't look bad, but they've stretched. And as they stretch and wear, the grooves actually get deeper. And when they get deeper, the pulleys that they drive no longer sit correctly. They sit on the edge of the lips, and they'll often squeak like that. Usually as simple as just replacing the belts. Right? Now they have an automatic tensioner on many cars. If the tensioner's bad, you got to replace the tensioner. But if you find only does it when you start and it immediately goes away, some people will live with it for years. If you do have adjustable ones that don't have an automatic tensioner, you might just need to have them tightened up. But most cars these days have automatic tensioners. So when they start making a noise, the first thing to do is just replace the belt. If you have one, or the belts if you have a few, they're good for so many years. I mean, they're 6, 7 years old, or just change them all. Then you don't have to think about it. Well, here's a hilarious headline. NASA praises Boeing's stranded Starliner for managing not to explode while it's docked to the space station. Well, you know, it's still up there. It was supposed to be up there for 8 or 9 days. Now it's been up there over a month, and they still have plans. They don't know how long it's going to be. They screwed up big time because they knew before it even took off that it had some leaks. And they decided, oh, let's blast off anyways, because it would look bad if they didn't meet their bringing the astronauts up into the space station, because they always want to keep it look like they're doing something that works out. They're wasting money like no tomorrow. The money it costs to send those things up. But Boeing and the NASA decided, oh yeah, well, we got some leaks in the bottom. That's okay, we'll go up there. Then they found out there's more leaks. Now they can't come back down again. It had more leaks when it was traveling towards the space station. Then it had trouble docking with it. Now they're saying, well, there's a 45-day limit that they got enough air and fuel and stuff on it. Another Boeing device having problems. Maybe somebody else should take over from these guys. They obviously aren't very good at what they're doing. Well, now people are talking about the end of solar panels and that they're going to have flower generators. Check it out. Flower generators. They actually have these things. You can buy them on Amazon if you want. You need like 5 of them to get any serious amount of electricity. But they're wind generators that kind of look like flowers, and they're the new kind. They spin inside. They don't have giant blades out, right? Now, of course, there's only a little amount of electricity you're actually going to get. What if you don't live in a windy area? They're not going to blow around, right? Now, already in some parts of Italy, they ban solar panels. Combination of a waste of money and their eyesores. They're ugly looking. I mean, let's face the facts. Especially on the west coast of Italy, they're tourist destinations. They're all countryish looking and old style from hundreds of years ago, right? And you stay in a quaint little village. Well, if they've all got solar panels on it, that kind of blows the image. Solar panels on these 800-year-old buildings. It kind of looks stupid, right? People figure, well, those cute little flower wind generators, they look cute, and they're cheaper than solar panels. But of course, the thing is, it's based on the wind, right? How much wind does an average person get? Perfect analogy. Here in Rhode Island in the 1700s and the early 1800s, they had a lot of windmills. You know where they put the windmills? They put them on the top of the hill. The one on the street is on Hilltop Road. They put them on the top of the hills, and they cut the trees down around them so the wind would blow through and create enough wind. Even then, they still had a problem a lot of times getting enough wind to grind the corn. You got to place them in certain places. Most houses aren't on hills. They're just on flat ground, right? How much wind are you going to get? What, are they going to start sticking them maybe on the top of houses and the wind blows them and then they fall over? These things are made to be put on the ground, right? And if you live in a really windy area, great. But most people, it isn't windy all the time. And how much electricity are you going to get from this thing on the ground twirling around? Why do you think? One of the reasons they put them up in the air on poles and stuff. There's more wind up there than there is at ground level, right? And these are pretty much ground level things. They're not all that tall. But of course, they're always trying to push some new thing that they say is going to save the planet. And when they find out it doesn't, then they jump onto another new thing. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.